What's up guys, this is Tony here with Salt Strong, and in this video I'm going to be doing an underwater analysis and sort of comparison of our Power Prawn USA shrimp lure rigged up on two different styles of hooks. Now the two hooks that I'm going to be using, number one is going to be a regular jig head. As you can see there, regular jig head, hook is exposed. This is a football jig head. This is actually our Haas football jig head, which you can pick up at fishstrong.com, and you can pick up any of this tackle and gear at fishstrong.com if you are interested. Definitely be sure to check that out. So again, we have the Haas football style jig head, and then we're going to be showing our Haas Weedless football jig head. As you can see, it has a football style weight on there, and it's attached to the hook and sort of pivots on the eye of the hook, so you get a little bit more motion there. So we're going to be comparing this underwater footage, see if there's a difference, and then come up with a conclusion at the end, so definitely stay tuned for that. But for now, let's go ahead and switch over to the underwater footage. So first up, we have the Power Prawn rigged on the regular football jig head. This is the Haas football jig head. And the one thing about these football style jig heads in general is, as you notice, when the lure lands, it stays upright. It doesn't flip over on its side. It doesn't flip upside down. So it keeps it more in an upright, natural position. Also, you notice with this jig head, it has a pretty clean presentation. It's not, very erratic. It doesn't dart around a lot. Nice gradual, glide up and then glide down. And again, with the jig head, it's going to fall pretty straight down because of the weight being forward on the nose of the lure. So now here we have the Weedless football jig head. Again, it's a football style jig head, so that allows the lure to stay in an upright position. Again, not flipped over or on its side, keeps it nice and upright. As you can see, the presentation is a little bit different. That lure tends to sort of flip, do back flips and front flips as you're bouncing it along the bottom, so a little bit more of an erratic retrieve because of how that weight is attached to the hook. Again, it's attached to the eye of the hook and pivots on the eye of the hook. And then one last thing I noticed from watching this underwater footage, and I think it's pretty important, is how the lure comes to rest on the bottom. Because of that extra sort of gap in that hook, the hook is underneath the body of the lure, so it creates a little space there, but it actually props up the lure as it's come to rest at the bottom. And that can be definitely beneficial if a fish is cruising along the bottom and sees, the shrimp sort of sticking up off the bottom as opposed to laying flat. Easier for that fish to see and identify. Alright, so as you saw, the action was pretty similar. Both jig heads, both lures go down very, straight. They dive straight down because of the weight being forward on the jig head. The major differences that I saw, it seemed like the jig head, the Weedless jig head with the weight on there that pivots, has a little bit more action as you're twitching that lure. It tends to flip a little bit more, very similar to, when you have a lure rigged up with a loop knot. That gives that lure a little bit more freedom of motion. So that's going to be the big difference. And another thing that's going to be a really big difference is one's weedless and one's not. So depending on what type of structure you're fishing, if you're fishing, docks, or you're fishing close to rocks or anything you can get snagged on, oyster beds, things like that, the Weedless jig head is going to be the best application, and you're going to want to fish it a little bit deeper. If you're using a really heavy jig head like this, fishing shallow, you could spook those fish, but you can go with a lighter weight if you need to, and that can definitely help. And then if you're fishing, open flats or, sandy bottom where you don't have a lot of things you can get snagged on, or even if you are fishing docks that don't have a lot of, debris on the bottom, you can get away with a standard jig head. And that's what it really comes down to, is if you don't have your lures rigged up properly, you're gonna give off the wrong presentation, and that could lead to either spooking fish or just not getting those fish to strike. So really, in conclusion, the way you rig your lures up in this comparison, these were pretty similar, but they do have their differences when it comes to the type of area that you're fishing, whether you're fishing heavy structure or if you're fishing open sandy flats or sandy bottom with not a lot of structure that you can get snagged on. And what it comes down to is presentation. Presentation is key. If you're spending your whole time fishing structure and getting snagged up, you're going to miss out on fish. If you're throwing something very heavy in shallow water, you're going to miss out on a lot of fish. You're going to spook those fish. You're not going to get them to strike. So in addition to, being in the right spot at the right time, which is something we show our insiders every week, we show them the best spots to fish every week, everywhere from Texas all the way up through the east coast of Florida, where you can find those inshore game fish. Our insiders have that sort of advantage over a lot of other people, where they can, find the best spots a lot more quickly and start catching more fish a lot more consistently. So if you're not an insider, definitely be sure to check that out. But again, presentation can be key once you do get to those spots. So again, make sure you're rigging up your lures properly and getting them in the right spots and in the strike zone. So that will wrap up this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them down below. Also, keep in mind, if you are interested in any of these lures or hooks that I showed in this video, we do sell them on our shop page at fishstrong.com. And if you are one of our insider members, you do get an exclusive discount on all tackle and gear on the shop page. So definitely be sure to take advantage of that.